Have you ever felt like something in your life just didn't add up? Like a tiny voice in the back of your mind was trying to tell you that something wasn't right? That's exactly what happened to me the day my daughter was born. What should have been the happiest moment of my life quickly turned into a whirlwind of doubt, secrets, and betrayal. It all started with a single photo, a hospital picture of my baby that didn't look like the child I was holding in my arms. At first, I thought I was imagining things. But the deeper I looked, the more I uncovered, and what I found changed everything I thought I knew about my family. This is the story of how one small suspicion unraveled a lifetime of lies and revealed a truth I never saw coming. Sophia sat in her hospital bed staring at the photo in her trembling hands. Her newborn daughter, Lily, was sleeping peacefully in the bassinet beside her, but something about the photo didn't feel right. The baby in the picture had a different nose, a slightly different chin, and even the eyes seemed off. Sophia shook her head, trying to dismiss the gnawing feeling in her gut. Maybe it was just the exhaustion from labor or the overwhelming emotions of becoming a mother for the first time, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the unease. Sophia, 32, was a dedicated elementary school teacher who had always dreamed of starting a family. This should have been the happiest moment of her life. Instead, she found herself wide awake at 2 a.m., obsessing over a hospital photo that didn't seem to match the baby she had held in her arms just hours ago. "You're overthinking this," she whispered to herself, trying to calm her racing thoughts. But the doubt lingered. A soft knock on the door broke her train of thought. Her older brother Ethan stepped into the room, carrying a bouquet of flowers. Ethan, 35, was a successful businessman who always seemed to have everything under control. His presence was usually comforting, but tonight something about him felt off. "Still awake?" Ethan asked, his voice warm but his eyes scanning the room. "You should be resting, Soph." "I couldn't sleep," Sophia admitted, quickly tucking the photo under her blanket. She didn't want to share her doubts just yet. "What are you doing here so late?" Ethan shrugged, setting the flowers on the table. "Just wanted to check on my favorite sister and my new niece. How's Lily doing?" "It's fine," Sophia replied, glancing protectively at her sleeping daughter. "But it's late, Ethan. You should go home." Ethan smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Family is different, Soph. I just wanted to make sure everything's okay." As he leaned over to look at Lily, Sophia instinctively shifted her body, blocking his view. Ethan's expression flickered for a moment. Was it frustration? Annoyance? Before he straightened up and gave her a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "Get some rest," he said, his tone light, but his words carrying an edge of finality. "You'll need your energy for tomorrow." As Ethan left the room, Sophia's unease deepened. Something about his behavior didn't sit right with her. She glanced back at the photo, then at her daughter. The differences were subtle, but they were there. And in that moment, Sophia knew she couldn't ignore her instincts. Something was wrong, and she was determined to find out what it was. The next morning, Sophia woke up to the soft cries of Lily. She reached over to pick up her daughter, her heart swelling with love as the baby's tiny fingers wrapped around hers. For a moment, the doubts from the night before seemed silly, but as she glanced at the hospital photo again, the unease crept back in. The baby in the photo had darker eyes, almost hazel, but Lily's eyes, even in their newborn haze, were a soft blue just like Sophia's. She tried to brush it off. "Babies change," she muttered to herself. "It's probably nothing." But the feeling wouldn't go away. Later that morning, Ethan returned, this time with coffee and breakfast. He was his usual charming self, chatting with the nurses and making jokes, but Sophia couldn't help but notice how much time he spent near the nursery. He seemed overly interested in the babies, even striking up conversations with the staff about hospital procedures. "Ethan, what are you doing?" Sophia asked when he finally came back to her room. "Just being a good uncle," he said with a grin. You know me, always curious. Sophia forced a smile, but her mind was racing. Ethan had always been protective of her, almost to a fault. But this felt different. He was hovering, almost as if he were guarding something. That afternoon, a nurse named Jasmine came in to check on Sophia and Lily. Jasmine was kind and attentive, and Sophia felt comfortable enough to ask her a question that had been nagging at her. "Jasmine?" Sophia began hesitantly. "How does the hospital keep track of the babies? I mean, to make sure there aren't any mix-ups?" Jasmine smiled reassuringly. "Oh, it's all very secure. Each baby has an ID bracelet that matches the mother's, and the photos are uploaded directly to the hospital's system. It's pretty foolproof." Sophia nodded, but her stomach churned. "Has there ever been a mistake, like with the photos or the bracelets?" Jasmine hesitated, her smile faltering. "Not that I know of, but—" She glanced around the room, lowering her voice. "Your brother was asking a lot of questions about the nursery earlier. He even asked to double-check Lily's bracelet, said he wanted to make sure everything was perfect for his niece." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. "He did?" Jasmine nodded. "I thought it was a little odd, but he seemed so concerned. I didn't think much of it." After Jasmine left, Sophia sat in silence, her mind racing. Why would Ethan be so involved in something that wasn't his responsibility? And why had he been so insistent on checking Lily's bracelet? Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a text from her best friend, Lila. "Lila, how's my goddaughter? Need anything? Celia, can you come to the hospital? I need to talk to you. Something feels off." "Lila, be there in 30 minutes. What's going on?" Sophia. Sophia put down her phone and picked up the hospital photo again. She studied it closely, comparing it to Lily's sleeping face. The differences were subtle, the shape of the ears, the curve of the mouth. But they were there, and the more she looked, the more certain she became. This wasn't just new mom jitters, something was wrong. When Lila arrived, Sophia wasted no time. She handed her the photo and pointed to Lily. "Look at this." "Really look." Lila frowned, studying the photo and then glancing at the baby. "Soph, I don't want to freak you out, but they don't look the same." "Exactly," Sophia said, her voice trembling. "And Ethan's been acting so weird. He's been hanging around the nursery, asking questions, even checking Lily's bracelet." Lila's expression darkened. "That's not normal. Do you think he knows something?" "I don't know," Sophia admitted, "but I need to find out." Lila sat down beside her, her lawyer instincts kicking in. "Okay, let's think this through. What exactly happened yesterday? Start from the beginning." Sophia recounted everything. Ethan's behavior, the photo, Jasmine's comments. With each detail, Lila's concern grew. "This doesn't add up," Lila said finally. "If Ethan's involved, there's a reason. And if you're right about the photo, we need proof." Sophia nodded, determination hardening in her chest. "Then let's get proof." That evening, after Ethan had left the hospital, Sophia and Lila sat together in her room, brainstorming their next steps. Lila, being a lawyer, was methodical and calm, but Sophia could feel the tension building inside her. She couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan was hiding something big. "We need to start with the hospital records," Lila said, pulling out her laptop. "If the photo was switched or the bracelet was tampered with, there has to be a digital trail." Sophia hesitated. "But won't that get us in trouble? I mean, isn't it illegal to access those records?" Lila gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, I'm not hacking into anything. I'll just request the records through the proper channels. As your legal representative, I can ask for a review of the hospital's procedures. It's perfectly within your rights as a patient." Sophia nodded, feeling a small sense of relief. "Okay, let's do it." While Lila worked on drafting the request, Sophia couldn't help but scroll through Ethan's social media. He had posted a photo of himself holding Lily earlier that day, captioned, Proud uncle moment. Welcome to the world, little one. But as Sophia stared at the photo, something caught her eye. In the background, near the nursery, she could see a nurse holding a clipboard. It was Jasmine. Sophia zoomed in on the photo, her heart racing. Jasmine had mentioned that Ethan had been asking questions about the nursery. What if he had done more than just ask questions? What if he had actually tampered with something? "Lily," Sophia said, her voice shaking. "Look at this." Lila leaned over, studying the photo. "That's the nurse you mentioned, right, Jasmine?" "Yes," Sophia said. "And look at Ethan. He's standing so close to the nursery. What if he did something to the records?" Lila frowned. "It's possible, but we need more than a photo to prove it." The next morning, Jasmine returned to Sophia's room to check on Lily. Sophia decided to take a chance. "Jasmine," she said carefully, "can I ask you something, off the record?" Jasmine hesitated, then nodded. "Of course. Yesterday you mentioned that Ethan was asking about Lily's bracelet," Sophia began. "Did he do anything else? Did he touch the records or the photos?" Jasmine's face paled. I don't know. I mean, he was near the computer station for a while, but I thought he was just waiting for me to finish my rounds. Why? Do you think he—" "I don't know what to think," Sophia interrupted. "But something doesn't feel right." Jasmine bit her lip, clearly conflicted. "I did notice something strange," she admitted. "When I logged back into the system later, there was a discrepancy in the photo records. It looked like someone had accessed them during my break." Sophia's heart sank. "Do you know who?" Jasmine shook her head. "No, but the system logs everything. If someone used my login, it'll show up in the audit trail." "Can you check?" Sophia asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Jasmine hesitated, then nodded. "I'll see what I can do." Later that afternoon, Jasmine returned with a grim expression. "I checked the logs," she said quietly. "Someone used my credentials to access the photo records yesterday. It happened during my break, just like I thought." Sophia's stomach churned. "Do you know who it was?" Jasmine hesitated. "I can't say for sure, but your brother was the only person near the station at the time." Sophia felt like the ground had been pulled out from under her. "Ethan," she whispered. "Why would he do this?" Lila, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "There's only one way to find out. You need to confront him." That evening, Sophia called Ethan and asked him to come to the hospital. When he arrived, she wasted no time. "Ethan," she said, holding up the hospital photo, "why does this picture look different from Lily?" Ethan's face froze for a moment before he forced a laugh. "You're overthinking this. Babies change a lot in the first few days." "Don't lie to me," Sophia snapped. "I know you accessed the hospital records. Jasmine told me." Ethan's expression darkened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Then explain this," Sophia demanded, showing him the photo and the bracelet numbers. "The numbers don't match, Ethan. Someone tampered with them. Was it you?" Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Sophia, you don't understand." "Then make me understand," she shouted. "Why would you do this? Why would you mess with my baby's records?" Ethan hesitated, his jaw tightening. Finally he spoke. "Because I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" Sophia repeated, her voice dripping with disbelief. "From what?" Ethan looked away, his shoulders slumping. "From the truth." Sophia stared at him, her mind racing. "What truth?" Ethan took a deep breath, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're not who you think you are, Soph. You're not Mom and Dad's biological daughter." The words hit Sophia like a punch to the gut. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. "That's ridiculous." "It's not," Ethan said, his voice cracking. "Mom told me years ago. You were adopted, Soph, your biological mother. She died in a car accident. Mom and Dad took you in and raised you as their own. Sophia felt like the room was spinning. Why didn't they tell me? They wanted to protect you, Ethan said. They thought it was better if you didn't know, but when I saw the hospital photo, I panicked. I thought maybe someone had found out and was trying to take you away from us. Sophia's mind reeled. So you tampered with the records. You switched the photo. I didn't know what else to do, Ethan admitted. I was scared, Soph. I didn't want you to lose everything. Sophia stared at him, her emotions a whirlwind of anger, betrayal, and confusion. You had no right to make that decision for me, she said, her voice trembling. You should have told me the truth. I'm sorry, Ethan said, his eyes filled with regret. I thought I was doing the right thing. Sophia turned away, tears streaming down her face. I need time to process this, she said quietly. I can't deal with you right now. Ethan nodded, his shoulders slumping as he left the room. Sophia sat down, her mind racing. Everything she thought she knew about her life was a lie. And now she had to figure out what to do next. The next day, Sophia sat in her hospital room, staring blankly at the wall. Lily was sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, but Sophia's mind was anything but calm. Ethan's confession had shattered her world. She couldn't stop replaying his words in her head. You're not Mom and Dad's biological daughter. Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was her mother, Helen. Sophia hesitated before answering. Hi, Mom, she said, her voice strained. Hi, sweetheart, Helen replied warmly. How's my granddaughter doing? She's fine, Sophia said, her tone clipped. But I need to talk to you. Can you come to the hospital? Helen paused. Of course. Is everything okay? No, Sophia said bluntly. It's not. An hour later, Helen arrived, her face filled with concern. Sophia, what's going on? You sounded upset on the phone. Sophia didn't waste any time. Ethan told me, she said, her voice trembling. He told me I'm not your biological daughter. Helen's face went pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Oh, it's true, Sophia said, her voice breaking. You lied to me my entire life. Helen sat down, her hands shaking. Sophia, please, let me explain. Explain what? Sophia snapped. That you've been lying to me for 32 years? That I've been living a life built on secrets? Helen took a deep breath, tears welling in her eyes. You're right. We should have told you, but we thought we were doing what was best for you. What's best for me? Sophia repeated, her voice rising. How is lying to me for my entire life what's best for me? Helen wiped her eyes, her voice trembling. Your biological mother, Emily, was my best friend. She was like a sister to me. When she died in that car accident, you were just a baby. Your father, he wasn't in the picture. Emily had no other family, and I couldn't bear the thought of you ending up in the foster system. So your father and I adopted you. Sophia's heart ached at the mention of her biological mother. Why didn't you tell me? We were going to, Helen said. But as you got older, it just got harder and harder. You were so happy, so loved. We didn't want to disrupt your life. Sophia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. You should have told me. I had a right to know. Helen reached for her hand, but Sophia pulled away. I'm so sorry, Sophia, Helen said, her voice breaking. We never meant to hurt you. Sophia looked away, her emotions a whirlwind of anger, sadness, and confusion. I need time to process this, she said quietly. Helen nodded, her face filled with regret. Take all the time you need. Just know that we love you no matter what. That evening, Sophia sat alone in her room, holding Lily in her arms. She looked down at her daughter's tiny face, her heart aching. She couldn't imagine keeping such a huge secret from her own child. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Lila. I came as soon as I could, Lila said, sitting down beside her. How are you holding up?" Sophia let out a shaky breath. "I don't even know. My whole life feels like a lie." Lila placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I can't imagine how hard this is for you, but you're strong, Sophia. You'll get through this." Sophia nodded, wiping her tears. I need answers. I need to know more about my biological mother, about who I really am." "Then let's find out," Lila said firmly. "We can start with the adoption records. If your mom and dad adopted you legally, there should be paperwork." Sophia hesitated. "Do you think Ethan knows more than he's letting on?" Lila frowned. "It's possible. He's been acting so strange. Maybe he knows something about your biological family that he hasn't told you." Sophia's jaw tightened. "Then I need to talk to him again. I need the full truth." The next morning, Sophia called Ethan and asked him to meet her at the hospital. When he arrived, she wasted no time. "Ethan," she said, her voice steady but firm, "I need you to tell me everything. No more half-truths, no more lies. What do you know about my biological family?" Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Soph, I already told you everything I know." "I don't believe you," Sophia said, her eyes narrowing. "You've been acting strange ever since Lily was born. You tampered with the hospital records. You've been hiding something, and I want to know what it is." Ethan hesitated, his expression conflicted. Finally, he spoke. "There's one more thing," he admitted, "but I didn't want to tell you because I wasn't sure how you'd handle it." "Just tell me," Sophia said, her voice sharp. Ethan took a deep breath. "Your biological mother, Emily, she wasn't just Mom's best friend. She was also Dad's first wife." Sophia's eyes widened in shock. "What?" "They were married before Dad met Mom," Ethan explained. "But their marriage fell apart after Emily got pregnant. Dad didn't even know about you until after the accident. That's when Mom convinced him to adopt you and raise you as their own." Sophia felt like the air had been knocked out of her lungs. "So, Dad knew? He knew this whole time?" Ethan nodded. "He did. But he never wanted you to feel like you were anything less than his daughter. That's why he never told you." Sophia's mind raced as she tried to process this new revelation. Her biological mother had been her father's first wife. Her entire life had been built on layers of secrets and lies. "I can't believe this," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Why didn't anyone tell me the truth?" Ethan reached for her hand, his voice filled with regret. "I'm sorry, Soph. I thought I was protecting you, but I see now that I was wrong." Sophia pulled her hand away, her voice trembling. "I need time, Ethan. I need time to figure out who I am and what this all means." Ethan nodded, his face filled with guilt. "Take all the time you need. Just know that I'm here for you, no matter what." The days following Ethan's confession were some of the hardest of Sophia's life. She felt like her entire identity had been stripped away, leaving her raw and vulnerable. Every time she looked at Lily, she felt a mix of love and fear. She didn't want her daughter to grow up surrounded by the same secrets and lies that had defined her own life. But amidst the pain, Sophia knew she had to move forward. She couldn't let the past define her future. With Lila's help, she began piecing together the story of her biological mother, Emily. They requested the adoption records and found old photos and letters that Emily had left behind. For the first time, Sophia saw the face of the woman who had brought her into the world. A woman who looked so much like her. "She was beautiful," Sophia whispered, holding a faded photo of Emily. "And she loved me. I can see it in her eyes." Lila nodded, sitting beside her. "She did, Sophia, and she would be proud of the woman you've become." Sophia smiled through her tears. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of peace. Knowing the truth about Emily didn't erase the pain, but it gave her a sense of closure. She wasn't just a product of lies. She was the daughter of a woman who had loved her deeply, and she was determined to honor that legacy. A week later, Sophia invited Helen and Ethan to her home. She had spent days thinking about what she wanted to say, and now she was ready. When they arrived, Helen looked nervous, clutching her purse tightly. Ethan, on the other hand, looked exhausted, guilt etched into his face. Sophia took a deep breath and gestured for them to sit. "I've had time to think," she began, her voice steady. "And I want to start by saying that I'm hurt. I'm angry, but more than anything, I'm disappointed. You both kept something so important from me, and that's not something I can just forget." Helen's eyes filled with tears. "Sophia, I'm so sorry. We thought we were protecting you, but we see now that we were wrong." Ethan nodded. "I should have told you the truth sooner. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now that I only made things worse." Sophia held up a hand, stopping them. "I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty. I'm saying it because I need you to understand how much this hurt me. But I also want you to know that I'm ready to move forward." Helen looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. "You are?" "Yes," Sophia said firmly. "But things have to change. No more secrets, no more lies. If we're going to be a family, it has to be built on honesty." Ethan nodded, his voice soft. "You're right. No more secrets." Helen reached for Sophia's hand, her voice trembling. "I love you, Sophia. You're my daughter no matter what, and I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you." Sophia squeezed her mother's hand, tears streaming down her face. "I love you too, Mom, but it's going to take time." In the weeks that followed, Sophia began to rebuild her relationship with her family. It wasn't easy. There were still moments of anger and sadness, but she was determined to move forward. She also made a promise to herself. Lily would grow up knowing the truth about her family. There would be no secrets, no lies, only love and honesty. One afternoon, as Sophia rocked Lily to sleep, she thought about Emily. She thought about the sacrifices her biological mother had made and the love she had left behind. And she thought about Helen, the woman who had raised her, who had made mistakes, but had always loved her in her own way. Family, Sophia realized, wasn't about blood. It was about love, forgiveness, and the choices we make every day to be there for one another. And as she looked down at her daughter, she knew that she was ready to create a new legacy, one built on truth, love, and hope.